Welcome to Headstones and Microphones, where we use AI to step into the past through a researched, first-person simulation of history's most interesting people. I am your host, Calvin. While we've added some creative storytelling, our goal is to inspire your own study of these fascinating lives. Now, let's meet our guest. I am so incredibly excited for today's show. Our guest is a legend of the American West, a man who wrote over 100 books and probably lived enough life for 10 men. For those who may somehow not know who you are you?
I'm Louis L'Amour. Most folks know me as a writer of westerns, but I like to think of myself as a storyteller who just happened to find his best tales in the dust and the sagebrush.
We're honored to have you, Louis. Let's start at the very beginning. When and where were you born?
I came into this world on March 22nd, 1908, right in the heart of Jamestown, North Dakota. It was a fine place to start a life.
And what was your given name at birth?
My folks named me Louis Dearborn L'Amour. Note the spelling, Lamoore.
Is there a story behind your birth name, or how it became the famous L'Amour we see on book covers?
My father actually changed the spelling to L'Amour when he came to the Dakota Territory. But later on, when I settled in Oklahoma in the early 1930s to really make a go at writing, I decided to change it back to the original French spelling, L'Amour. It felt right for the career I was building.
Jamestown sounds like a classic setting. What was your hometown like growing up?
It was a medium-sized farming community, tucked in the valley where Pipestem Creek meets the James River. Even though it was farm country, the Northern Pacific Railroad ran right through it. I used to watch the cattle cars go by and see real-life cowboys headed to market. It was a gateway to the world for a curious boy.
What was your family life like?
I was the last of 7 children. My father, Dr. Louis Charles L'Amour, was a large animal veterinarian and a local politician. My mother, Emily, was a former school teacher. We didn't have a lot of money, but we were rich in stories. My grandfather lived in a little house right behind ours, and he'd tell me tales of the Civil War and the Indian Wars. It was a house full of readers and thinkers.
With all those stories, what kind of kid were you?
I was a sponge, Calvin. I spent every spare second at the Alfred Dickey Free Library. My sister Edna was a librarian there, so I had an in. While other kids were just playing, I was deep into the works of G.A. Henty and Jack London. I played cowboys and Indians in the barn, sure, but in my head, I was already traveling the globe.
What were your biggest fears growing up?
Growing up on the tail end of the frontier, you learn that nature is indifferent. I suppose my biggest fear was stagnation, the idea of staying in one place and never seeing what was over the next horizon.
What did you dream of becoming as a child?
I always knew I was going to be a storyteller. I didn't know quite how yet, but I knew my life was going to be an adventure I could write down later.
What was your first job?
Oh, I had plenty. But after the bank failures in the early 20s forced my family onto the road, my first real rugged jobs involved skinning dead cattle in Texas and baling hay. I even had a short stint as an elephant handler for a circus in Phoenix.
An elephant handler? That's a twist. Was there a moment where you realized you were different from everyone else?
It was likely during those years on the road. I realized that while many men lived their lives in one town, I was seeing the world through the eyes of a miner, a merchant seaman, and a professional boxer. I was collecting pieces of people to put into books later.
What's a decision that changed everything for you, but felt small at the time?
Dropping out of school at 15. At the time, it felt like a necessity because of my family's finances, but it turned out to be my true education. I traded a classroom for the University of the World.
What was your biggest break?
1952 was the year. John Wayne bought the screen rights to my short story, The Gift of Cochise, and turned it into the movie Hondo. That changed the wind for me entirely.
What were your biggest struggles before success?
The 1930s were lean, Calvin. I was living in Oklahoma, trying to sell stories for pennies. I was working as a merchant seaman just to keep food on the plate. Rejection slips were more common than paychecks for a long time.
Did you ever consider quitting?
Never. A man who quits on his dream is just waiting for the end. I knew the stories were in me. I just had to find the right way to tell them.
Were there any specific daily habits or routines that you feel are essential to your success?
I wrote every single day. I kept thousands of notes on everything, from how the Navajo wove their blankets to the record for buffalo hunting. I buried myself in research. If you want to be a writer, you have to be a reader first, and a worker second.
What job would you have had if fame never happened?
I likely would have stayed at sea as a merchant seaman or perhaps stayed in the ring as a boxing trainer. I loved the physical nature of those jobs.
What was your life like before fame?
It was a life of motion. I saw England, Japan, China, and Egypt. I slept under the stars and in the holes of ships. It was rough, but it was honest.
How did relationships change after success?
You find out who your real friends are, the ones who ride the river with you. I was lucky to marry my wife, Kathy, in 1956. She was my partner in everything.
What misconceptions did people have about you?
Some folks thought because I wrote westerns, I was just a quote-unquote pulp writer. They didn't see the thousands of books in my library or the deep historical research that went into every page.
Tell me about a time when everything went wrong and how did you handle it?
When the pulp magazine market started to dry up in the 50s, I had to pivot. I didn't panic. I just started writing for the slicks and then moved into novels. You have to be like a river. If you hit a rock, you just go around it.
My family, without a doubt. My father taught me how to solve problems, and my mother and sisters gave me the gift of literacy. And of course, the old-timers I met on the road who gave me their stories.
What were you working on in your career before you passed away?
I was always working. I had dozens of story fragments and manuscripts in my office. I was working on my memoir, Education of a Wandering Man, which I really wanted to use to encourage others to never stop learning.
When and where and how did you pass away, and how old were you?
I was 80 years old when I passed away on June 10th, 1988, in Los Angeles, California.
What's a random fact about you most people have never heard?
I once claimed to have won 51 out of 59 professional boxing matches. I wasn't just a man of letters, I was a man of my fists, too.
What was your most unique habit?
I was a note-taker. I had scraps of paper everywhere with facts about stage fright, the history of crackers, or how the Sioux camped. My desk was usually buried in them.
What was your favorite food?
After years of eating whatever was available on a ship or in a mining camp, I developed a simple palate. But I always had a soft spot for the traditional contributions of Native Americans: corn, peanuts, and popcorn.
Did you have any known rivalries?
Not in the way you might think. My only real rivalry was with the clock, trying to get all the stories out of my head and onto paper before time ran out.
What advice would you give people chasing success?
Don't wait for inspiration. Go after it with a club. Read everything you can get your hands on. Work harder than the man next to you. And remember that the destination is never as important as the journey itself.
Louis, this has been an absolute pleasure. Before we sign off, do you have any closing remarks for our listeners?
Just this. The frontier isn't a place on a map. It's a state of mind. Keep exploring, keep reading, and never let your curiosity grow cold. Thank you for letting me share a few more tales, Calvin. It's been a grand time.
Thank you, Louis. What a journey, from skinning cattle to winning the Presidential Medal of Freedom. We've learned so much about the man behind the Western legend today. Thank you for coming on the show. And that wraps up another conversation from Beyond the Grave. Thanks for joining us on the Headstones and Microphones podcast. Remember, legends may die, but their stories never do. Please help spread the word by sharing and following the pod.